Let's be real. Airline travel kind of sucks to begin with.
I can't handle this.
But Delta Airlines, who is traditionally known for their wonderful customer experience and loyalty programs, may have just made the whole process of buying a ticket from them a whole lot worse for all of their customers. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Leading Change. My name is Emma Roloff, and in these episodes of Change in the Wild, I take a look at current events and how they match up with the ideas of digital transformation, change management, leadership, and emerging technologies. And in this episode, we're diving into the recent announcement by Delta Airlines that they plan to lean into AI to individually price fares moving forward. If you're enjoying our content, consider subscribing to our channel, giving this video a like, and dropping a comment. We personally respond to every comment that we get because we enjoy having a conversation with you. So last week, they had an earnings call where they made the announcement to their shareholders that they have started a pilot that allows them to individually price tickets algorithmically using AI at the highest threshold that an individual is willing to pay. And that they plan to expand this from 3% to 20% of their fares by the end of 2025 because they were, quote, amazingly favorable unit revenues from their pilot so far this year. So some of us are familiar with the idea of dynamic pricing that's been in place with airlines for quite some time. So maybe you look at a ticket and 3 days later you come back to it and all of a sudden the price has spiked because there is increased demand or you've gotten closer to the day that you are planning to travel. And all sorts of different things like market demand, your activity of looking at that ticket, all play into the price increase. And begrudgingly, we've had to go along with that. But this individualized pricing kind of takes it to a whole new level. The CEO of Delta announced that they will have a price that's available on the flight on that time for you, the individual. And that price is going to cap out at what the AI algorithm tells them is the maximum purchase point that you will make as an individual.
What a ripoff!
So this will no longer be done off of the market. This will no longer be done on specific space on the flight. You may just be paying more based off of your own buying behaviors or whatever data they have as a part of this algorithm. Now, earlier this week, there were multiple senators after this announcement that came out and said, like, this is not okay. Delta needs to provide more information about how they are coming to these conclusions, what information is being used. And they put out a statement saying that Delta's current and planned individualized pricing practices not only present data privacy concerns, but will also likely mean fair price increases up to the individual consumer's personal pain point at a time when American families are already struggling with rising costs. And this type of dynamic pricing using algorithms and machine learning in the background isn't brand new, but it's still incredibly upsetting to consumers. So some of you may remember back last year in 2024, Kroger grocery stores made headlines by coming out and saying that they were going to be using electronic shelving labels. And that meant instead of going around and having to replace the prices below items, they wanted to implement electronic pricing so that they could, at the touch of the button, change the pricing for products. But multiple senators raised their hand during that process and said companies that engage in dynamic pricing, changing the cost of goods based off of temporary factors such as time of day and weather, updating their price tags with a simple click of a button, these corporations can price gouge, suddenly rising the cost of consumer goods at times when products are in high demand. And so especially surrounding things like groceries, there was a pretty strong uproar surrounding that. But when you look at the response of people on Reddit below these news stories or things that I'm seeing on TikTok in terms of consumers responding to this, there's a lot of outrage. People are saying things like, you just know how exploitive this is going to be. Quote, oh, you need to fly to your father's funeral. How much is in your bank account? Funny enough that that's the exact price of a ticket. Now, obviously, that's an exaggeration, and hopefully Delta would be a ethical enough company not to do that specifically to people. But from a consumer standpoint, when we don't understand what data is being used to set those price tags, there are a lot of questions that start to pop up, and deeper questions beyond just how much money do you have for a ticket or how bad do you want it, but also demographic information about where you live, what zip code you're in, what zip code are you traveling to. There are also comments about what this might do to Delta's loyalty program. A lot of business travelers opt towards Delta because of the loyalty program and the perks that they get for traveling through business to then be able to use for vacations or leisure travel. But there's a lot of people saying, like, won't this have the opposite effect on their loyalty program? People who are business travelers who will purchase at a higher level for business work travel, not considering what the ticket price is the same way that they would for leisure travel, isn't that going to throw off the algorithm and have them pricing stuff for leisure travel even higher than they would as an individual, making them opt towards other airlines?
Never thought of it that way.
But all of this plays into the larger conversation of how and where, as organizations, we're choosing to implement artificial intelligence and what kinds of stories or ideas we're giving to our customers and our employees. I've made videos in the past about Duolingo and their AI first announcement and what that might have said to their employees. But in this scenario, and being so open about specifically using AI to maximize profitability at the expense of your customers and then being able to fairly purchase a ticket, starts to tell your customers that you are more focused on leveraging this technology for profits than to improve their individualized customer experience. And for a brand like Delta, who is known for that loyalty program and customer experience, this has the potential, and based off of the headlines that I'm seeing at this point, to really damage their reputation.
Why do people hate us so much?
When we look at the use case for artificial intelligence, there are tons of places that we can use it. But businesses need to take a moment and stop and think about, just because I can, does it mean I should? And this is kind of one of those perfect examples of where other airlines who are sharing where they're using AI are using it to improve the customer experience as opposed to maximize the profits that they can get on an individualized ticket. So United is using generative AI to send messages to people for cancellation notices and to communicate quickly with their clients. And other brands like American Airlines have come out and said that they're using it, again, in situations that are meant to improve the customer experience as opposed to strictly focus on increasing profits. And this might have a really big downstream effect for Delta Airlines and may end up backfiring on them. And as we look at our use of artificial intelligence and this AI first mentality, or putting technology ahead of people, we open ourselves up to a lot of decisions that might make customers choose a different route. Duolingo had mass amounts of people leaving their app, and they had to delete their really popular TikToks because they got so much hate online from consumers who were not interested in this AI first mentality.
Duolingo made an announcement last night that caused thousands of people to cancel their subscriptions this morning.
I have never deleted an app so fast.
Oh my God, everyone hates us for firing all our employees and switching them out for AI.
And so this is a cautionary tale to be really thoughtful about how and where you're rolling out technology and the messages that you're sending when you have internal messages going out, messages during earning calls, and who you really are focused on speaking to. Now, as an organization, if all you care about is your shareholders and you hope that your customers stay around, well, then make these types of announcements and use the technology in this way. But if you're an organization who wants to use artificial intelligence to set yourself up for future success, look for ways that you can improve the human experience, whether that's your employees or your customers, and be thoughtful and intentional about where you roll out the technology with a people-centric thought process. Because ultimately, the efficiencies will come. You'll improve the efficiency of your team. You will improve the customer experience and make more people want to work with you. And all of those, in turn, will maximize profits for you. But this type of behavior might be a little too short-sighted. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this whole situation and kind of dynamic or personalized pricing being driven by AI as a whole in the comments. So drop your thoughts below. Let me know, will this impact whether or not you travel with Delta moving forward? Would something like dynamic pricing in a grocery store make you shop somewhere else? I love to hear your thoughts and kind of engage in the conversation back and forth. And I personally will go back and interact with you in the comments. So be sure to drop that below and let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Leading Change. If you like what you saw, be sure to come back on a weekly basis and subscribe for more expert interviews focused on digital transformation, change management, and emerging technologies.